Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to speak at this event. Mandela's liberation struggle and fight against racism and apartheid are particularly relevant today. The struggle for freedom and self-determination is not over. Foreign occupation has not ended. Indeed, inequality and discrimination on the basis of race, color, caste, and religion have grown. Practices akin to apartheid have proliferated in some states and societies. As South Africa's own history attests, suppression of those struggling for self-determination and liberation is often justified by the oppressor by equating this with terrorism. The fight against international terrorism since 9/11 has made it easier for foreign occupiers and aggressors to utilize this ploy to justify their crimes. We must not forget that even Nelson Mandela himself was sentenced to life imprisonment for terrorism. Today, other occupiers and architects of apartheid in Palestine and Kashmir are imposing these policies to prolong and justify their inhuman and illegal actions. Excellencies, the UN General Assembly Resolution 2649 adopted in 1970 states, and I quote, affirms the legitimacy of the struggle of peoples under colonial and alien domination, recognized as entitled to the right of self-determination, to restore to themselves that right by any means at their disposal. This resolution further states, and I quote, recognizes the right of peoples under colonial and alien domination in the legitimate exercise of their right to self-determination to seek and receive all kinds of moral and material assistance in accordance with the resolutions of the United Nations and the spirit of the Charter of the United Nations. Unquote. Despite the legitimacy of their cause, which has been duly recognized by the Security Council, the struggle for self-determination of the Kashmiri people has been brutally suppressed by the Indian occupying forces in blatant violation of international law and the relevant General Assembly resolutions. Like South Africa, while the political history of Jammu and Kashmir remained mostly non-violent, the persistent refusal by India to grant the people of Jammu and Kashmir their right to self-determination, as promised in the UN Security Council resolutions, led to popular alienation and resistance. The blatant rigging of the 1987 elections in the Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir led to popular protests. On 20th December of 1989, India killed 100 peaceful protesters in Sri Lanka. This was the breaking point. It ignited the popular freedom struggle of the Kashmiri people. The 1989 Kashmiri uprising was similar to the African National Congress's decision in 1964 to take up arms against the apartheid regime. The ANC was accused of terrorism. So is the Kashmiri resistance. In truth, the only terrorism being perpetrated in Jammu and Kashmir is India's state terrorism against the innocent Kashmiri people. Since 1990, the Indian Occupation Army has martyred over 100,000 Kashmiris, widowed 22,000 women, orphaned 108,000 children, and raped more than 11,000 women. Since 5 August 2019, India is also embarked on a plan to change the demography of occupied Jammu and Kashmir and transform it from a Muslim majority state to a Hindu majority territory. This is a blatant violation of the UN Security Council resolutions, the Fourth Geneva Convention, and international law. Indian authorities are issuing millions of fake domicile certificates to non-Kashmiris, seizing and selling off their land, gerrymandering electoral constituencies through its so-called Delimitation Commission to reduce Muslim representation and install a BJP RSS puppet government in Sri Lanka. Excellencies, dear friends, India's treatment of Kashmir's political leaders, the Hurriyat Conference, is also reminiscent of the treatment of ANC leaders by the apartheid regime. The recent conviction and sentencing by an Indian kangaroo court of the Kashmiri leader and freedom fighter Yasin Malik is reminiscent of Nelson Mandela's treatment in the struggle against apartheid. Yet, as Prime Minister Sharif has declared, India, and I quote, India can imprison Yasin Malik, but it can never imprison the idea of freedom he symbolizes, unquote. However, we are convinced that such colonial tactics are bound to fail, as Mandela himself said, and I quote, a freedom fighter learns the hard way that it is the oppressor who defines the nature of the struggle, and the oppressed is often left no recourse but to use methods that mirror those of the oppressor, unquote. As the history of the last 75 years attests, no peoples can be denied the right to self-determination and freedom forever. Ultimately, the legitimate struggles for freedom always succeed. I thank you.